Hi, I'm Donna Dewberry. Over 26 years ago, I created the FolkArt One Stroke painting technique with Plaid. I love being with this company. They're innovative, they're creative, and guess what they came up with? A beautiful filming studio where we can do Let's Paint programs all year long. And our program that we have this year is Let's Paint FolkArt One Stroke Birds and Blossoms series. I love that we're starting off today with the first lesson of this series. I love painting. I love a lot, but I love painting these cardinals. We're going to do a male and a female cardinal, and I love the meaning of cardinals. They're loyal, their honesty, those are good words to use for them. And there's a spiritual meaning for a lost loved one. That means a lot to me. And so when I see a red cardinal, I just know that my loved one's thinking of me. So today I want to share with you that we have done it again at Plaid. Plaid has created a beautiful kit for this program. I have painted a hand-painted folder this year that is perfect for these reusable teaching guides that are inside this kit. And they're two-sided, so you can stroke right on them and learn the strokes with me. And during each lesson, you will need the FolkArt multi-surface paints, the FolkArt One Stroke brushes, and floating medium. We also have patterns that show and help you trace and transfer every bird the exact size that goes onto our project. So I would love for you to go, if you haven't picked this up already, go to plaidonline.com/Let's Paint. And you can get all the tools and supplies and this beautiful kit right there to paint along with me during the year. So what you would be looking for is Let's Paint FolkArt One Stroke Birds and Blossoms series. And also, we have something new this year. We have another kit that you're going to paint with me during the year. They're wonderful. And so Plaid's thought of everything for us, and I'm thrilled to be painting with you today. This is our first project of the year, and we are going to have a blast. I'm going to teach you that birds are fun. So I'm going to gather my supplies, and I'll be waiting on you. I'm so glad you chose to join me today in the studio to do our first Let's Paint FolkArt One Stroke Bird and Blossom program. And during this program, we have a series of beautiful birds we're going to be doing. And before we get started, I wanted to share with you that there's some great tools that are inside our kit that are going to help each project be successful. The first thing I want to share with you is we have reusable teaching guides, one for every month. These are two-sided. They have wonderful strokes that I'm going to be sharing with you as we do our projects. And it also tells you all the paint colors that we're going to need. And there's also another treat that's inside here that in a painted folder that's in there, you can put all these patterns that we've made for you this year. Each bird has a beautiful drawing pattern all ready for you with sometimes there's a birdhouse. We put cardinal, love, faith, some words that you can also trace and transfer onto your projects. And they're two-sided, so there's another one that we're going to be doing during the year. So everything's going to be there to make that part easy for you. And then my favorite is the multi-surface paint. So on your teaching guide, your reusable teaching guide, it's going to share with you what colors we're going to use. And this is FolkArt multi-surface, and my favorite part about it is it has a sealer in it, vivid, beautiful colors. This is burnt umber, titanium white, pure black. I want you to pull these colors and have them all ready. Pueblo, apple red, pure orange, and aqua. And we also do not want to forget that we're going to be using a lot of floating medium in this project, so make sure your floating medium's ready. And we've got our one-stroke brushes. You have 10 different brushes, all sorts of sizes for little teeny details. I also want to share a few other things that you're going to need in your workroom ready to go. I have this great surface. It's a 4-piece wood palette that is in the surface kit that we're offering this year. So you're going to love this piece. It's going to be ready for you, all smooth, ready to start painting right away. what I'd love for you to have is some of my tools, which is the palette, the double loader that's going to make it easier for you to load as I share and teach you this. We have a few other little things like a sanding block or sanding paper, and a few more little things I'll share as we go. So let's look at what we're painting here. We have a beautiful aged fence. We have a red cardinal that is going to be the feature here, but we didn't want him to be alone, so we put a little female cardinal there. Thought that would really be pretty on top of the rustic birdhouse. So let's put this to the side and let me share some things with you about the surface. Now, what we've got is, like I said, a really smooth, nice surface. The thing you have to make sure of, I always forget, we need to make sure that the hook that's already on here is the right size so you're not painting on your project upside down. All right. Now, what I have done is I have taken the titanium white and I painted a couple coats on here, and I want to share what's going to happen to you on here. On this piece, we are making sure I have mine right side. All right, so what's going to happen here is you put your first coat on with your 3/4 inch brush. All right, you're going to put a nice coat on here, and I have let that coat totally dry. You can use your blow dryer or you can just let it sit and dry. When that's totally dry, it's going to raise the green, so you're going to have little fuzzies, all right? So what you do is take a sanding block or fine grit sandpaper, and you're going to just knock off those edges. So it's really light sanding, just like that. You don't have to really work really hard, but go around the edges to get some of the little pieces that might be sticking up. And if you don't do that before you do your second coat, what's going to happen is it's going to be rough underneath the second coat. And so I found that when you have these two nice coats, everything else goes on very smoothly, and that fine detail won't have be distorted by rough edges, okay? So what I'd like to do first thing is get you started. We've loaded our double loader with all our paints. I put a lot of floating medium in the middle here because we're going to use that a lot. So what we're going to do is tell you a little bit about floating medium. This is the fluff that's inside paint with no pigment in it. So what's going to happen is it's going to make the paint move for you easier and not just stick and be thick and dark where I don't want it to be thick and dark. So let's look at this again. So what I want you to see is see the knots that we have here and see the aging that I'm putting in this area. These are really important steps to make this look like it's old and rustic. And that was the whole point of this fun project. All right. Okay, we're going to take our 3/4 inch brush, dampen it, lay it on the paper towel, and then it's kind of ready to go. Now I want you to refer back to your reusable teaching guide, and what you're going to do when you're on that reusable teaching guide is you're going to look at the colors that it says that we used on the background. And each color and each brush that I use is labeled there along with watching the lesson together. All right. Now what I'm going to do first thing is I'm going to pull this right here. I'm going to go to the floating medium. I'm going to work this into my brush really nice, and I'm going to side stroke right here the burnt umber. Okay? Now I'm going to come and get this often. All right, so let's start right here, and the first thing I'm going to do is go back and forth. Now see how that medium helps it move for me? And I can just keep picking up the burnt umber. And I want these edges. We're going to do the outside edge too, but right now let's just work on the edges that we want. And there, I'm aging them and darkening them on the outside. All right. Then as I pick up more medium, I can come in here and just make a few different moves in here. We're going to go all across before we start our knots. And then I'm going to start bringing a few on the chisel edge. This is your chisel. A few little marks here and there so it looks like it's cracked a few places on the fence, just like it would be if you had an old fence on the farm. And then we're going to put some knots. So what I've done is I've taken this one and I've taken it to another step. So let's look at this step. All right, so what's happening here is where I've done some of these knots and aging, I'm going to do some more here, and then I'm going to show you how I traced on the pattern. So let's pick up, I want you to see that this is a light coat on here, where I've just gone back and forth like you just saw me do. I'm going to put a few more aged marks on here, and then I'm going to show you, this is all with your 3/4 inch flat. I want to show you how I put a knot here because it's really the same brush, the same floating medium. It's coming here. And right here is where the birdhouse is. I'll show you how I added this on. Okay? Okay, so let's come right here and there's a couple little knots here I want you to see. Now I'm going to go ahead, let me show you again, because this is what we did earlier. I'm going to come in a few places here before I do the knot. So remember, what I was just showing you on the other one is that I'm up on this chisel edge. And that's what's getting us these crack marks. And you can lay it flat every once in a while and age it a little bit more. All right, and I can do the same thing down here, but what I want to do is get my knot in here. So I'm going to come from one of those. I'm going to lay to the side the chisel. Remember, that's the chisel. Let's get more medium and more burnt umber. Okay, see it's heavier. The rest of it, this is where people make a mistake. They make the brown go all the way across. I want the heavier brown on the side and floating medium on the rest. There's a little bit of brown here, burnt umber, from being doing the wash across, but most of the dark is on the outside chisel edge there. All right, so you're going to curve that way. You're going to come down from the crack and then go like this to the outside edge. All right, so I can smooth that out if I want, but all I'm going to do is take more medium, pick up a little bit more burnt umber, stronger burnt umber. I'm going to come down here, make a curve down here at the bottom, and then when I come back up, I do go back to that point, or you can take and make it, because the knot has different rings, right, by how old it is, because it's the limb that's been cut off. All right, so let me tell you what happens next. I like to come in here and do a few more rings off of from the limb. See how they're going to go on the side there? We come down here, around, and back down. Okay, and you can go right over that pattern, it's fine. And then right here, we're going to come here again. Now I've already put a big one over here, but I'm going to come right here again. Then this one's going to be a smaller one. Mine's looking bigger. This will be fun. I think you'll like doing these different knots and getting that look. My husband was loving when he saw my first knots. Because those look real. There we go. All right, so I left this space in here so it's not too busy in front and between the two of these guys. So what we're going to do now is wash out our brush. So I want this to dry, but what I want to share with you is for filming purposes, I went ahead and had this on here because I wanted this to be drying so that we could move a little quicker. So now what I would do after all the wood grains dry, I would put this to the side and I would work on getting this trace. But in the meanwhile, look at this. I want you to see that you know that the birdhouse is going to go right here on this third panel, and the female cardinal is going to be over here, and where the male cardinal is going to be. So you don't want a lot of knots around that like I was sharing with you earlier. Okay, so if you get your pattern and I'm using an Identa and I've got tracing paper. So we've taken the tracing paper and we've traced your patterns that you're going to use, the birdhouse and the female and the male cardinal. But let me share with you that this is the important part about tracing it. As I'm putting this right over here, I want you to see that we even put the breaks where the panels on the wood fence are. And we also only need to do the outline that's important for the base coating in, okay? So I want you to see that this is all the fancy detail that you really don't need, and this is how much you do need. All right, so if you've never traced and transferred a pattern. All right, so then that's going to be ready to go right onto our wood piece. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. Be sure to use a ruler to get these really straight lines, and it's going to make sure that it looks neater. All right, so see the break right here where the birds break? The bird has a break in the body. All right, and just the detail of where the wings and the tail go and the beak. All right. So both pieces have now they're ready to transfer onto here. And like I said, I lined up the break here and the break here. Same thing with the cardinal over here. And we decide where we want because we can put the branches wherever. And then I'm going to use a stylus with my graphite paper. So sometimes you might use white graphite paper. This one's gray. And you're going to put it right here. But to do this, I lined up where it needs to be when you could see through it, okay? Then I'm going to lift, and I can also tape this, okay? All right, we can put tape on here, painter's tape, slide this under, and then start tracing with our stylus, okay? Transferring it with our stylus. All right, and I use the spine line to get this on here. And then you still have your pattern for next time. It's all ready, and you can fold it up and keep it in your kit for when you do more cardinals. All right? So I've taken and have it all ready for us to start our project with painting the next steps that we're going to do. So we've base coated, we've aged and put our knots, we let those guys dry, and now we are going to start painting by doing the birdhouse first, because the birdhouse is going to be underneath the female cardinal, okay? So let's pick up our 12 flat and go over here. Before we do the cardinals, we're going to flip this over. There's my wood graining right there. See right here? We've got the wood graining, the knots, so you feel comfortable with that. Now I want to work on this birdhouse itself. All right, so this is a very shiny lamination. I just want you to know this was done because it's the beginning of the year and we just did a mock-up so I could start filming. You're going to have the same coating that's always been on our worksheets, and you can wipe off your practices and start over again and practice over and over. All right, so now what we're going to do is let's look at the colors that we used here first. And so we're going to base coat it with a medium gray. So let's make our medium gray over here. And what I'm going to do is start out with titanium white, and we're going to pick up a little bit of pure black. And we're going to make this medium gray. Now this is the thing, I picked up a little more pure black than I wanted. So you just get more titanium white until we get a gray tone that we like. All right. Now what I wanted to do is put some of the rustic, which is the Pueblo colors, and some burnt umber in here. So I'm going to come along here. And actually I can base coat this whole piece in here, but I just wanted you to see that if I go right along the line. If you stay inside this area, then what's going to happen is you'll see the roof line. It'll be easier for you to paint. We're going to go up and down the same direction of our wood strips on the front of the birdhouse, okay? the siding that we have here. All right, so now what's going to happen here is I'm not trying to make it perfect because I want it rustic. And I'm going to come right here on the side and have, by breaking this up, even if it's the same color, you can see where the side starts and ends. Okay. Now I have a little trick here. If I went over a little bit more than I wanted to, I can wet my brush with just water on the brush, lay it on the paper towel, and clean up my line right here. And I'm also going to come in with more burnt umber here and make it a little dark for shadowing in here. Okay. Now on the roof area, what I've done while this is setting and drying a little bit, I also put a little bit of gray on here, like a metal roof. Be sure that you keep your reusable teaching guide near you because you can see everything that I'm working towards, and it's a good reference for you to rely on that as you're going because it's going to tell you the colors, all the look that you're going to be wanting. I'm going to continue to paint the tin roof on the top. I'm going to refer to this for the detail on the roof and the detail on the house itself, okay? So I have a little piece there, a little one here. And so the next thing I want to do is I'm picking up, you can see roof. We're going to use the 12 flat. And after we've done this, we're going to do wisps of the aqua. Okay, so I'm just going to take just the chisel. See, I picked up just flat. And then I'm going to come right here and rustically just put some wisps across there. Do not do a solid painting, okay? Just little brush strokes of it coming up on the flat of the brush, okay? While the gray's still wet, you're going to get that wispy look better than if you let that totally dry. And I even put a good picture of it right here for you to see. Now, I'm going to put some Pueblo on here and then give that a rest so that that can dry a little bit before we do this white like metal trim that's on here. And then we're going to go over and work on the body of the house, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is pick up the Pueblo. And, all right, so I cleaned out the aqua and now I've picked up the Pueblo. And I am going to pick up a teeny bit of the burnt umber, okay? So I can work those two together. And I'm going to come across here and make some little bit of these colors coming underneath the bird. Now this one I did without the bird so that you could see what you could do if you just had the birdhouse, but also you could paint the whole thing underneath the bird and then add the bird. Okay, so see how I want it to look a little bit like rusted metal. And so that would be rusted on the edges a little bit. And then down in here, a little bit in here. And so I'm just dabbing it a little bit. All right, but also now let's pick up some of that Pueblo and let's pull it right here, going straight down. And it's just kind of like a dry brush because this is already dry. All right, so let's come up a little bit. And you can put all your panels in first, but I just kind of came in here and added a little bit here and there. This is going sideways. So I'm going to pick up burnt umber and go ahead and work on these panels here. So it might be easier, like I put on the reusable teaching guide, to put these panels in here first so you see where you're working. It might be easier, like I did on the teaching guide, to put the burnt umber before you put the Pueblo so that you can know where to put a little stronger shading. Okay, so do you see my finger now, my little finger? I am steadying myself as I'm doing these panels of wood, these strips of wood on here, and my little finger is pulling so I can get a pretty straight look, all right? But just, we're gonna age it too, so they don't have to be perfect if you got not a steady hand like I don't always. And then I'm gonna put this right out here, so this is the side of the birdhouse, and right across here. Okay, so now let's go right along here. I'm concentrating on what I'm doing, so I need to make sure that I'm continuing to do this roof line up here. I think y'all can hear when I go into my zone. I need to make sure that I'm still talking to you guys along with achieving what I'm trying to achieve here. All right, so look right here. We're going to come right along here. And so you can see that there's the edge of the roof line is important, and then we shadow underneath this, but you definitely can't shadow while all this is wet, so we're going to leave it for a little bit. And then this is dry enough up here for us to go back and put the little design that's in the tin, the metal roof there. So what I want to do now is to put this trim along the roof here. So I'm going to use floating medium, work that into my 12 flat, and I'm going to pick up some white, little dips of white, work that in. I don't want it too strong. I want it kind of a wash. Okay? And so now what's going to happen here is I just did, just like a roof would be, you start on this edge, and you're going to do another layer up. And see, you might have enough on this brush to do all of it. But I'm just coming here with this nice little trim. I just thought it added to it. And the metal that I was looking at on a roof had some little design on it. All right. Now, when we come back, we're going to put snow and everything on here, but we're going to leave that like this so far. Then I can take and redraw or retrace on my hole in the birdhouse, okay? So we are going to take and have the oval opening right here. And the perch. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go to my smaller brush, and we have our 8 flat. We're going to pick up burnt umber. I've already dampened it and dried it. Oops, I picked up too much paint. Let's pick up the burnt umber, and we're going to go halfway, come back. I did almost a whole circle. Usually I do ovals. Look at this. Let's go ahead and make it a circle. Okay, and then when I'm doing the perch, what I want you to see is that you don't want it to go straight down, you want it to go at an angle. So I'm going to come right here and do a little curve so it looks like it's a round perch, around, and then we're going to go straight out to the side, left or right. This one I'm going to the left, and then I'm going to curve this end. Okay, so while I've got this burnt umber on here, because you can float 2 ways. You can float with a color like the burnt umber, or you can float with floating medium. All right, and so since this is wet, I'm going to go ahead and float, and it's all right here so you can see how to do this. You can go and practice it even on your guide before you actually do it. So see how it did the shading there? And I can say, hey, I want to do a little bit more. So I'm going to come in and highlight a little bit more, and I also want to highlight the end of the perch so it looks round by putting the white there too. Okay, So now we are a little dry here, dry enough that I can do some of that aging. And I'm going to go back to my 12, or let's go to a 10, which is a little bit bigger than that 8. All right, so let's get floating medium and some burnt umber. And I'm going to come in here a little bit darker on the roof edge here. So what I want you to see is I'll go flat with shading under here. And then in other areas, we're going to go and make cracks just like we did in the background and do a heavier either flat or up on the chisel. All right, so I kind of do both to get the look that I want. All right. So see, I can pull the chisel and do it heavier on the bottoms usually, and then chisel. So if I use a floating medium, it's kind of thin. So I could come back with another chisel edge of burnt umber. See, I have to do a little bit more. And one little trick, if you want it a little bit darker, you can get just a teeny bit of pure black and work that in, and that might give you a little bit darker shading. And up here too, especially along in here, where I've got the shadowing from the edge of the roof. All right, so we're going to do that all along here. Now remember, any part of this that you feel like you're going to take a little bit longer to do, just pause the video and get caught up to where I am. Like when we're doing all this aging on the fence, you want to do that before we do the birds and before we put berries and branches. So just pause it and get caught up to where we are. Same thing with this birdhouse. All right, because I want little grapevines, all little twisted vines of some kind. I'm calling them grapevines, all along the bottom and around this birdhouse. Okay, so let's get our project and look at it real quick, because see all these grapevines, twigs that I did with the 2 script liner. I want you to see that I'm working it all in here a little bit behind the bird. So I have it coming in front, up, around, and behind the bird. Okay, so, oh, and I've got another shading right there. Let me go put that on here. All right, so what I wanted to share with you about these brushes that's real important is to keep your brushes good. We're going to make sure that we don't let paint dry right into the ferrule area. Okay, this is your ferrule. So right here, can you hear this raking in the basin? It's real important that you see I'm raking it across the basin. And you can let it rest here for a minute if you're going to use it again. But then what I want you to do is make a habit of wiping it off and having it ready to use again instead of sitting in the water, okay? So let's come here, pick up a little bit of medium, the floating medium and the burnt umber, and we're gonna come right along here, okay? And shade this back edge. And I also, before I get started, I like to darken it just a little bit more back here because it's gonna have all that vine in there. Twigs, whatever you want to call yours. And then I have some of the burnt umber under here also. And I never finished here. I just a reminder, look at this. You just want it to look like there's cracks in the wood, and all of that's important before we start putting the twigs. Now I have many times done my vines with the chisel edge of my 12, for instance. I use that to do the twigs sometimes. But what I'm going to do is use the 2 script liner on this project. So you're going to take your 2 script liner, work it into your burnt umber, okay? And if this isn't dark enough, you could get some of the licorice and add to it too, okay? But when we thin it, don't thin it with floating medium and usually just water. So I'm going to come across here, and I want you to practice. You can practice right on here. And the important thing is, see how we get that look? Practice to get that look. It's easier than trying to do a curly cue, because what we're doing is we're just following like you're pulling a wave. All right, and then we just keep starting over and over on here and not going from the beginning to the end every time. You're going to break it up. Then I tell you to make an eraser. So I take the quartered paper towels for your teaching guide, and then it'll make it real easy with the water to wipe that off. And because multi-surface is a really good paint to go on all kinds of surfaces, it will adhere, so please wipe it off as you go so you can take it off easier, all right? So I'm going to keep going into my burnt umber. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that pure black. And I'm going to come right in here, and just every once in a while I add the pure black, so that, especially when I want you to be able to see it really good. So this, remember what we're doing. We're coming on the front of this. Roll the brush when you pick up paint so you have a really thin look. And if you use some water, I can use some water and make it a little inky, and that can get you some really fine lines. But to make this look with substance on here, I did leave it thicker sometime, okay? This is kind of fun. It just makes it a little bit more interesting. Okay, a little bit more water. Not as inky as normal. And you say, what's normal? As if you're doing curly cues or string ribbon. All right, now I want to go behind her. Okay, and you can come right on top of the tracing, because then we can come out here. All right, now what's nice is that we have a nice finish on the fence here, so it's going to make a really nice curly cues. Not curly cues, but tendrils out here. Okay? All right. So now what we're going to do is I want to put some branches so we know where the bird is. So if we put the branches in, we know that we can miss where they are and make sure that it looks normal, adding the branches behind the birds. All right, so I'm going to use my 3/4 inch because these are bigger branches. Let's look at the branches really good. Now, I want it to be where it looks like it's a tree or whatever over here with branches hanging, and over here, this looks like it might be a tree. This might be a bush over here, but they're all going to have berries, so it's probably the same kind of plant, all right, or tree. So coming in there and some coming up. All right, so to start doing that, we're going to get our worksheet and we're going to see how we did this. We used a 12 on here, and we added all the snow. It says that where we added the snow, but we do that at the end, okay? So I'm going to put the 3/4 back, and I'm going to use the 12 because you do have more control with the 12. All right, so I'm going to pick up some medium, and I'm going to go right into the burnt umber. I picked up the floating medium and go right into the burnt umber, and then I'm going to side stroke a little bit of titanium white, all right? And every once in a while, it'll tell you that every once in a while I did, like I did here. If you're not seeing, it depends on how dark you get on your background, you might want to pick up a little bit of pure black. All right, so I'm coming in here, and I'm just going to bring my branch down. And it isn't a vine, so it is a little bit heavier. So I'm not just on the chisel, but as I come here, I'm going to put pressure pressure, and come across, okay? And then later, we're going to put the snow. We're going to attach the berries in here, have it go off here a little bit. So if you'll see, you practice these right on here. That'll help you feel more comfortable. So right here, and go right on here and get that feel. What I want you to see is that we make a Y. Do you see that? So a lot of people, when they're doing branches, they go straight off here and straight off there. You see that doesn't look natural, but this does, where you're breaking it into a Y and coming off of there. So that's an important thing that you're going to get from the teaching guide. And also, see the little twigs that are going to hold the berries? To be able to do those twigs are right there. Okay? I'm trying to wipe the snow off, but it's going to stay. All right. So now what I'm going to do is come here and finish a little bit of our branches there. I have one that comes off here, a little above her. Well, they're liking this because there's all these fun berries to eat on. All right, so let's look at our daddy here. All right, we're going to come right over here and make a bigger branch. And you see, I'm not tracing any pattern on or anything. I just want you to see what's the first important thing I do is that I have a branch under him, right? And I have one coming from the top. This is coming up from the bottom. And I just don't want to hit her, so I'm making it a little bit out of the way, and also where I want to see berries. All right, so look, I make that little scoop right there. And then I'm going to come up here. And I'm going to miss him by going above him. And see, I want this to be a little scoop there so it looks natural. All right, and then I put a little bit of berries there. I'm going to put a little branch going under him. All right. Now, take some burnt umber and a little bit of pure black. See how I'm picking up a little bit? And just put a little bit of dark here and there. I got a little dark on my knots and all, and I would like to see this a little better in here. You might not need to. It depends on how dark you do your aging. Okay? All right, so I have this under him here. And then I had a little bit for the twigs to hold the berries. All right. We're going to put the berries on last, but I can come in here and make, let's use a, let's see, what did we say we used on here? I want you to go back and look and see when we start putting the berries on. We're going to do the same as we were doing up here, okay? So with the burnt umber, you can use, I don't want you using something that can be as simple as doing the chisel edge for most branches and all. But when you're doing berries, I like to break them off and have it look a little bit more delicate. So you can jump over and use a 2-script liner if you're making a branch to hold berries, okay? See that? All right, I did make that a little inky. So I have a cluster of berries over her. And see, you're going to break that just like you just did the branches, but we want it a little bit smaller, where we're going to add those little berries, okay? So as soon as I get through with this, I'm excited because we're going to start our birds. Now, birds, if you look at them broken into segments, they're really very easy to do. And with one stroke, I make it real simple to get feathers and looks that are going to make you happy with your birds. All right, we'll put a little bit here. All right, and a few down here. Now what you can do also is after you paint your berries, because you might want more berries in different places, you can then attach the berry from the berry itself back to the limbs, all right? All right, let's start our birds. Okay, so before we get started with the birds, I want to look at them really close. So what I want you to see is that there's parts of a cardinal that always makes it look like a cardinal. One is it has the, we're going to put that pure black face there. The beaks on them are, you know, I always see a lot of them where they paint them black. They might be dark, but most of the, you know, the live ones I've looked at have an orange tone, Pueblo and orange maybe mixed, the pure orange mixed together. But they have the black highlight at the top, at the end of some of the feathers, at the end of the tail. So I want you to see the different segments here. We've got the wing, the tail, and the tummy, the belly part. All right, but the black face. All right. And then if you look at her, the male is always the vivid one, but I think the female's so pretty though. So we're using some brown tones and bringing in some Pueblo in here, maybe little bits of red and white. So they're definitely different than each other, but they complement by the way you can always tell is they have the peak at the top of their head. All right. So to get this and make it easy for you, I have made sure that all these steps are broken down really easy to follow on our reusable teaching guide. So you can practice to get the shading, and the arrows are all sharing with you the way I make the stroke. And then even little details where we're getting this feathery effect without doing single strokes of feathers. So I just want you to see you're supposed to practice right on here, and even their little talons down here. Close up of the beaks and also of this face area with each eye. All right. So let's get started with the male cardinal first. So I'm going to base coat, just like the guide says, we're going to go down here and base coat with a number 12 flat for the apple red. So I've dampened my brush, laid it on the paper towel. I'm picking up the apple red, and I'm going to start base coating the whole, even this part here, but don't get the peak up here on the head, don't get larger than the tracing. All right, because then it's going to get larger and larger, and this is very vital with the shape of the head. Okay, now I'm leaving the pure black area and not coating that, but the rest of this I am going to come down and do that base coat of it, even when I'm going to go back and do strokes of feathers. All right, so I don't want it to be intimidating. I want you to see that it's going to be fun to accomplish this. All right, so see the tail, it's got a few strokes there, which are going to have pure black on them. But right now, I'm just filling in the body part. All right, so we're going to come right here and all the way down where the branch is and fill it in. Okay, see how much apple red I'm getting? I keep going over and picking up more. Now you're going to see through some of this wood grain underneath, but that's when I'm going to come back and add a little bit more paint. You can let it dry in between. And add some more later if you feel like you need it. Okay. Now I'm going to let's paint the. I'm going to go back over here because I want to stay in order here so that you don't get mixed up with this. We're going to go to the number 6 flat, and we're going to wet it, put it on a paper towel, dry it off, and pick up pure black. And I picked it up on both sides, okay? We haven't really double loaded here so far very much, so as that happens, I'll show that to you right in the double loader. All right, so you can follow the pattern, and we're going to come right down to where the beak goes. All right, and it's going to curve a little bit right there, coming out here, and then under the beak. So I like to make sure that I'm not going to go in the beak. I'm going to get a straight line there to work from, okay? And you can kind of put little strokes pulling this down. Okay. Then what we're going to do next is you're going to double load the medium and pure black and highlight the feathers down here. We're going to come right along here. And before I do that, let me I don't want to use a smaller brush. I want to highlight right in here with floating medium and the pure black and work it in. Okay, and this is going to be in this bottom shape of the body here, where the belly is. All right. And then I kind of bring that down a little bit there too. So that's getting a little too much licorice. So I'm going to get some more medium and move that licorice. See that? Okay. I'm going to put a little, what happened there, this is good to show you. It picked up a little bit of the red, the apple red. So I'm going to put a little bit more back in there. All right, so now we're going to go and pick up the feather colors right here that are going to go on the tail. And I'm on the chisel right here on this edge. So I can come here and practice this so you feel comfortable right there. And practice this chisel along here and make sure you're getting that right. And I come along here with all the pure black first, and then I can come back. I'm going to make a few of these with some medium on here now. I'm going to work this medium in. So when you pick up the floating medium, you work this in so that we can put a few more streaks in here. Oh, that's still too heavy. We just want a really light coat here. And then I'm going to do the strokes all of the wing here. And then I'm going to come back and highlight. I can go ahead and highlight this this tail and the wings after I put the wings on, okay? So the wing feathers, we're getting this illusion here by using floating medium and pure black and working it in. So I'm holding the pure black to the outside edge. Now watch what happens here. I'm going to come in on the ends of each of where those feathers would be. Okay. All right, so I'm going to come back from this the back area here. I'm going to come all in here with just a little, to get this illusion of the wing, and just a little bit of this pure black on one edge of the brush so that you get the illusion of the feathers. But the red, because it's going to be red with just a little bits of the pure black showing. And so I can get that illusion by doing this. I can also then come back with the smaller brush. All right, and get little tips of, this is an 8, a 6 or an 8. You pick up little bits of white here, and I came right along here, and that just makes those feathers pop out a little bit. But also, right along here, we do this and come out and back up. More of a point down here, okay? And then we're gonna work on up here in the peak of the head there. All right, there's a little bit of shading I got in the face. Okay, so around here, let's do a little bit more apple red. Just right in here, because I can see the wood grain through there pretty good. And I can put a little bit more red in here since it started coming up. I really, because of time, I keep going to the next step, but some of this I should be stopping and drying if I'm worried, like there when I floated it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the 8 flat and, right, put another coat of the pure black right there. But now, this is where I want to be really careful. I'm going to turn this around so I can get to this feather right here. And so I'm going to get a really nice point and come down over here. Okay. Make sure my hand's out of the way there. All right, so what I want to show you is shading inside this face. Gives you also a good look of what a cardinal looks like. So I'm going to wash that off, and I just want a little bit of floating medium. I've got white paint in my floating medium. I'm trying to miss it, but I'm going to move it a little bit. Okay, so floating medium, and I'm going to side load the pure black, and I'm going to come right along here, shade right there, a little bit more of the pure black, and I'm going to shade along in here. See how I'm fading around with the medium? Okay, and then right in here, there's a curve right here on the cardinal head right here. Gives it more dimension, okay? All right. Now, let's get where's our beak? All right, let's look at our beak. It's a 6 flat. So here's a 2 and here's a 6. I want you to see the difference. That's what we're doing eyes and detail with, okay? You can use a 2 flat or a 2 script liner. All right. So I'm going to come in here and pick up pure orange. And it's good to base coat that pure orange first, and then we can get more color. So I always like to come into the head with the beak and then come out with the beak. Okay, so while I'm here and I've got this color, let's go ahead and put the base coat on our female cardinal, a little bit smaller. All right, so now that I put that coat in there, I'm going to pick up some Pueblo, and it gives it a richer color. Oops, that was a lot of paint. A little bit of Pueblo with the pure orange, and then we come right in here. Gives you a nice shade. Okay. Now, here's a little trick, because I have that beak wider than I want the beak. So if I come in with my brush and just wet it and wipe some of that off. Because what's really wonderful, remember I told you there's a varnish, a sealer, inside the paint. So what's really nice is that you have a finish that you can take that off of and still have the background not move, okay? While that's drying, I'm going to take my 2-script liner, get some water, make some inky titanium white, roll it. Now, it already is got the pure black, so I don't need to add more black. Usually I put a little circle of the black, but right here we're going to, it comes back a little bit. Do a little bit around the eye. Put a little dot in there. Now, usually I get more than I want on there, and I'll show you what I do. So here's a little liner right there on top of the beak of white. All right. Now, usually I can't make that as thin as I want, so I'm going to take pure black and come back in and just touch it a little bit so it just leaves a little bit of a highlight. Okay, so I'm going to roll this in the 2-script liner into the pure black, and so I can get this detail here. So I'm going to come right here and make a little slit in the beak, a little bit under here, little short strokes there, a little bit on the top of the beak, and then nasal there. There we go. All right, so he needs some talons. So I'm going to use a 2-script liner, pure black. All right, and I can take and touch right here where the branch is and pull, and you can see they're right there on the reusable teaching guide. So pressure left, there's 3 there, and then right up here there's 3 more. Now I can take and roll that on there and then just grab a little bit of white on the wet brush with thick white, not inky. And then I just come in here and just barely touch it right over the pure black. And I'm going to put a little bit more white right there. Okay. There we go. So there's just little steps. It's kind of fun to see it start coming to life. Okay, so let's start working on our female cardinal. And what we're doing here is it's going to show you how I shaded with the titanium white and the burnt umber to get a tan color. And then it shows you how I added apple red with that color, that mix. And then we even come in here with some Pueblo. So I want you to see those colors as we're adding them. So it's the same thing. I want to base coat and then start shading with the burnt umber on top. So I'm using a 12 flat to base coat and then changing around. Probably can use that brush for most of the detail, but every once in a while, if you feel more comfortable with a little smaller brush, you can do that. But I'm going to pick up the 12 flat, I wet it, lay it in the paper towel, get the excess moisture off out of it, and then let's mix our color here. So this is what I want to do. I want to take the titanium white, and let's pick up some burnt umber, and I can get a tone here that I want to make it. It shows you right here the color that I got. So you can pick up some Pueblo And see how we're getting a nice color there? It's just like when we're mixing gray tones. We're getting a brown tone that we feel comfortable with. Now, this is what happens. When I do this, I'm going to get that color, and then I'm going to come make sure that I like that color. See? See, that's going to give you that pretty darn good. See that? And then I can add a little bit of red to it when I'm working in the red tones. All right? So make sure you mix enough. This should be enough. I can use some medium to make it move a little bit. And I'm going to go on the side here so the white isn't jumping out at me here. All right, so I'm going to come right in here and come down into that beak. See that? And then I'm going to come here. We are going to come back and put some white on her belly. I'm going to go ahead and put all this base color in here. Same thing, even though we use that pure black over there. All right, we're going to come right along here, and then I barely see all my little vines, but I can come across here. Right here's the wing, and then here's the tail. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pick up side load just on one corner, the burnt umber. Okay, so a couple things I want to do here. I'm going to come right along the back here. Just make sure you watch the teaching guide and feel comfortable with what's happening there. And then right in here, right below where the head is, I'm going to bring that wing shape down. I'm going to pick up a little bit more burnt umber. There we go. And we're going to come right along here. And I'm going to stroke some wings on here. But right now I'm just trying to get that shape of the wing in there for us, okay? And I can put a little bit of the burnt umber in here, but while this is wet, I want to show you. I'm going to wash this out. And I'm going to pick up the titanium white, work it into my brush. And then right underneath her belly here, we're going to brush it up. That's all we do. It's a little tummy there. All right. And I'm going to take some of that off and just have the titanium on the one edge here. And I'm going to come right in here and highlight her cheek. All right. Wipe that off. And all this is right here, just one step after another as I'm showing you what we're doing. I'm picking up the Pueblo, and this is still a little wet, so you're just rubbing it in. It's still a little damp, it's not totally dry. Okay. And then I did do some right under the neck. Right under the neck, right under the head. There we go. All right. Okay, so that gives a pretty nice little color there. And then I've taken the same color that I mixed for the body, back on that 12, and I'm going to pick up some apple red. So look, I'm working that in. There we go. So we pick up a little bit more red and working that in to the background color that we made for the body. All right, so I'm going to come right here. Now, it's not as red at all as the male, but if we come right in here, I see these little feathers along the back of the head. We're going to come across the front some. And across the back here. Now I'm going to take that same color, and I can darken that a little bit later if I want to. But if you look at this, let's see it's kind of muted. And then we put some burnt umber back on there. But I have some in here and on the tail. Now I just did a dry brush here, but I want to show you that you can improve the look always by making feather strokes. So when we're doing that, we're leaning on the chisel, right on the chisel, and pulling up. Little long chisel strokes. I need a little bit of medium because that's not moving. And then right here on the wing itself, we're going to start right down here. Pull, floaty medium, red mix, apple red, and the browns. Okay, and now I'm going to come in with some burnt umber and some pure black to get more highlights in here. But on the highlights, use whatever brush you feel a little bit more comfortable with. I'm going to go down to the 8 here to work on some of that detail. All right, so one thing, I'm going to take this and I'm just going to stroke a little bit of white in here. Now I dry brushed it in there before, but it looks good to get a little bit of texture, okay? All right, now I'm going to come in here with the burnt umber and right under the head, I'm going to come right here. See, I can stroke a little line there. And then chisel. Little teeny strokes will give you that effect of feathers there. Right in here. More floaty medium. Work that in. Right in here. All right, and then I'll just keep looking at what I did over here. Here at the end, we're going to take the pure black, put a little bit of that on the tail area. Okay, and I'm using the same brush. I'm just coming along here and coming up. Okay, and then there's another layer of colors on the wing down here. Okay, so now a little bit more, just I kind of mix the burnt umber and the pure black there a little bit so it's not as harsh. But look, I'm just going to take the same brush and chisel a little bit where it goes to the red here, the apple red. All right, and I got a little warmer. Look, you can come and I use a little bit of water there, but floating medium would probably help to go around there, just how I shaded the pure black over there. And then I took a little bit of that pure black and shaded That or the burnt umber. Shaded right across here into the eye area and down in here. So floaty medium, a little bit of burnt umber there and down there. Okay, the only thing I want to do here really quick is take off some of that on top of the white highlight. And then right in here, I want to come back with some apple red. Make it a little bit more intense. And I can intensify this up here a little bit too. I don't want to just like the male, but I do think a few little highlights would help. Okay. Now, let's put the little talons in her eye. Okay, so on this one, I do take like the handle of the brush, or you can paint it in and put one little dot where the eye is going to be. And that'll help you sometime with the bird, getting that eye in there. But when there's a few birds that they're all the black. And we're going to put a little bit of pure black right there. Okay. And I can get a little bit darker here with that pure black too. All I'm doing is picking up a little bit of burnt umber instead of the pure black to put the separation in the beak. All right, and then I'm going to wash that liner off. This is a 2 script liner. Now you can use 1 script liners when you're working also, but just remember the 2 script liner has a finer little tip. But the 1 script liner, sometimes you can control a small area you're trying to touch. So if I come right across the top here and just put a little bit of white. And if you let this pure black dot dry, or you can just come in here. And there again, this is what I do. If I put the white, like I did over here, I want to come back and try to do that line just a little bit more. See that? Then I can take the pure black and touch up a little bit more there. And take away a little bit there so I still have those 2 highlights. All right, so let's get the pure black and let's come right here and make the talons. And we're only going to see this side. And so it's 3, just like I did over there, 3 pressure release. And then, so now we're going to take burnt umber on the 2 script liner, and I'm going to come right here, push, lift, and we're only doing one side because the other side isn't shown. And I'm going to come right here and pick up just a little bit of light, and I'll highlight the titanium white just on one side of each talon. Oops, see that's a little much. You can just go back over it because it's wet, and it'll pick that up. Okay, so now we have a couple of other fun little steps to do. One of them is let's get our berries painted, and I'm going to use my 6 flat. So that, let's go to our berries and see what we're going to do here. So this is going to make it really easy for you. It's a 6 flat, and I'm using apple red is what I started with, a side load of burnt umber. And then some of them I mixed apple red and burnt umber to get darker berries. See how there's darker ones in back? And when we're all done, I used a little bit of Pueblo for color to highlight. And then we put a little glare on those, and I'll show you how to do that after we do this. Okay, we're going to come right in here on these little branches, and we're going to pick up the apple red and it's hard to double load in this with the smaller brushes. So I do the main color and then I come back and stroke the other, side load the other colors, sometimes just dipping into it. So I do 1/2 of a circle and then the other half. 1, 2. All right, and so I could probably get 3 berries before I change and go get more paint. All right, so I'm gonna do a few of these first. I can just do apple red on a couple. And especially if I get a shape I'm not really pleased with, I can go right on top of that edge and cover the spot didn't get perfect for me. And then come over and do a couple more. Okay. So I'm showing you how to do a cluster, and then we can repeat those clusters, but let me show you that I'm going to come in here and do a darker one, remember, where it is more burnt umber, and they might be in the background more. Let's put another one here. Okay, and then I'm going to take the same apple red on this brush. I'm not cleaning anything out I'm not taking the paint out of the brush. I can lay it on the paper towel if I feel like I've gotten too much. So then I came in on a couple of these and I added Pueblo. I am going to wipe that off and just pick up Pueblo. Okay, so sometimes you might have just a little bit of paint, so you could just pick up the Pueblo. All right. Now what happens is when you take this with Pueblo and you pick up the titanium white, get a little bit of titanium white. Now I've got to have a space right here where I keep working that in. A little bit of white. Oh, there we go. Now see the white's on the edge, so now I'm going to put a little bit of highlight. You can do highlights where we're just going along here and doing a little bit of, I guess, more red on here. Okay, I can just do a little highlight like that, but then I can take, as you get it going, you can hit a few of them at one time, and it'll just have just enough. But then I like to go to the 2 flat, and I've shown you on the teaching guide right here, where we can just do a little glare like they're shiny. So I've used the 2 flat, come back here and take that paint off. All right, just kind of flat. And then I'm going to take and do little teeny highlights. And wherever that highlight, that glare is, you put it on the same spot. Like the light's hitting it from up there. Or over to the left here, kind of. And I put that on each one. And this is also where you could go and see if you needed to put another little stem holding the berry. Okay, so I'm taking my 2 script liner, and this is when I would come in, roll the brush, so I have a thin brush here of paint, and I can pull these berries. Most of them have a place where they could be on the little stem, but some of them don't, so this is a good place to do that. All right, now I'm going to keep working on berries, just like I showed you, and you can re-watch it again to remind yourself, and I'll come back in a few minutes while you're doing your berries. And then we'll finish up with snow and fly specking. Okay, so now I've got all my berries on, and I just realized I need some more brown tones into my female bird here. So I want to bring in some burnt umber again, titanium white. Let's get some more of the Pueblo. And this is the 12 flat. And I'm going to pick up some burnt umber now. And so see that mix right there, the burnt umber with the Pueblo? and the mix of white and all, I'm going to come in here and add some really nice brown tones with our mix in here. And that tones that down a little bit, and then I am going to pick up some of the apple red again. Let's see how that brings that color into here. Let's pull a little bit of this. I missed this whole step there. All right, so let's bring a little bit of the burnt umber there. All right, and I'm going to grab on the brown umber and the red. I'm going to pick up both of those colors and stroke right through here. I want the burnt umber and the apple red, the stroke right in here to give some of that brightness. And then I'll come right in here again and put some of the red tone feathers. Now that looks better. Okay, there we go. Now, let's take this 12 flat and we want to make sure that you have fresh white and it hasn't started drying up. Okay, I've got the fresh white. And I'm going to come in here and just dab with the corner and put some snow drifts on, real chunky, like I do this with melted candles too, that little lumpy looking snow on here. Okay, a little bit down in here on the edge of the roof. All right, and I even came down on this corner here and put a little bit. Just the corner of the 12 flat. All right, so an itty bitty bit along here, so you just don't put very much. A little bit in here. Okay, now then I came along the branches, so I like putting it where it's just sitting on this edge, but this is where it can be really nice, or you can go overboard. So just put a little bit here, a little bit there, right in this area here. So heavier areas and then really faint. Just kind of think where the snow would sit if it was falling. Fresh snow, since I live in Florida, we don't see much of that. I've seen lots of pictures. All right, a little bit of this. Have you seen it where they've got the berries are peeping out of the snow? Okay, and then a little bit down in here. And then we are going to do some fly specking, which would look like the snow's coming down, like little flurries of it maybe. All right, almost there. A little bit up here, wherever the snow would catch and just kind of sit. Out here. I don't want to mess up. I want my knot there to show pretty good. Okay. Now there we go. Now let's, you can run a little bit of highlight here and there inside these twigs if you want to, but by the time we fly speck it, it probably will take care of every bit of that. So what I'm using is, I do have some clean water here. I'm just using a toothbrush, and I made it really wet, and I'm working that into that brush really good. Now I can tap it, and I can practice it a little bit and make sure that it's coming off here well. And then all I'm going to do, if it's too wet, it will disappear kind of. Okay, and I might stay away from the face, but you can do heavier areas. Most of the heavy areas down below, down here. And you decide, you put as much as you would like to have. See, that's what I was saying, we probably don't need to put any more detail on those twigs. There we go. And we're done. So I think that looks great. I love fly specking, and look how great snow looks on this piece. It finishes it, right? Wow, do you like the way we made wood grain? And I love flicking the snow, putting snow on the branches. That puts me in a really good mood. And you guys always do that for me. I would love for you to be part of our community at the Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group. We have this great community where everybody comes on and shows the paintings they've been doing and asks painting questions. And I would love for you to show off your one-stroke projects that you've learned from me by putting hashtag Let's Paint Challenge and share them there. It would be great to see them along with you coming to my next lesson. And you know what? I think you're going to really have a good time in the next lesson. Can I tease you a little bit? It is going to be this pretty little bluebird on this scalloped little piece of wood that would be so pretty, decorated, painted soft, and put in one of your guest bathrooms, or even given it as a gift. And we have a whole year of fun to come. So get busy painting using your FolkArt paint and my one-stroke brushes.